At exactly 1:17 a.m., a train arrived at Platform 9. The problem was simple. Platform 9 didn't exist anymore. I stood frozen inside the underground control room, staring at a bank of security monitors while the station lights flickered overhead. Above me, the city slept beneath rain and empty streets. Nearly 300 feet below ground, the depot stretched through darkness like a buried skeleton of steel and concrete. The train rolled silently out of a tunnel sealed 22 years earlier. No engine noise. No screeching brakes. No radio signal announcing arrival. Just a long procession of dimly lit passenger cars gliding into a platform officially removed from every station blueprint decades ago. My chest tightened immediately. Because I had spent the last week reviewing maintenance records. I knew Platform 9 wasn't simply abandoned. It had been erased. Then the train doors opened. Passengers stepped onto the platform. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all wearing clothing from different decades. None of them moved toward the exits. Instead, they stood perfectly still beneath the yellow station lights, watching something inside the train. The depot radio crackled beside me. A voice emerged through layers of static. Come. Professional. Terrified. Do not let them see you. I looked toward the monitor. The voice belonged to me. Then one of the passengers slowly turned toward the security camera. Toward me. And smiled. 3 nights earlier. My name is Daniel Mercer, and by the time I accepted the overnight position at Blackstone Underground Depot, I had already developed an unhealthy appreciation for places most people never think about. 6 months earlier, I lost my job as a railway systems technician after a restructuring eliminated half our department. The timing couldn't have been worse. My father had passed away the previous winter, leaving behind a mountain of unresolved paperwork and a house I couldn't afford to keep. Days blurred together after that. Interviews. Rejections. Long nights staring at apartment ceilings, wondering how quickly a life could become unfamiliar. When the City Transit Authority offered me a night shift maintenance position inside one of the oldest underground train depots in the region, I accepted almost immediately. The pay wasn't remarkable. The location wasn't desirable. But it was stable. At that point, stability felt more valuable than ambition. Blackstone Depot sat beneath the city like a forgotten second world. Most commuters only saw the public platforms connected to active train lines. The depot itself stretched far deeper underground. Maintenance tunnels. Storage tracks. Emergency shelters. Service platforms were abandoned decades earlier and left buried beneath newer construction. My work involved monitoring infrastructure systems after passenger service ended each night. Track sensors. Electrical networks. Security cameras. The station transformed completely after midnight. Above ground, traffic continued moving through rain and neon reflections. Below ground, silence settled over miles of concrete corridors illuminated by fluorescent lights. The deeper sections felt especially strange. Certain platforms hadn't handled passengers in years. Dust collected along rails leading into darkness, while faded signage hung from tiled walls nobody visited anymore. Walking through those areas created the unsettling sensation of moving through preserved pieces of another era. The supervisor responsible for training me was a tired maintenance coordinator named Richard Voss. Most of the orientation focused on ordinary procedures. Equipment inspections. Security protocols. Emergency evacuation routes. Then Richard handed me a binder labeled After Hours Operations Addendum. The title itself sounded harmless enough. The contents did not. Never investigate train arrivals not listed on the nightly schedule. If platform announcement systems activate without cause, do not respond verbally. Avoid Platform 9 maintenance corridors between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. Most unusual of all was the final instruction printed across an entire page in bold lettering. If security cameras display activity on Platform 9, do not access the feed more than once. Naturally, I assumed the rules existed because old facilities accumulate stories over time. Every large infrastructure project eventually develops myths. Workers spend enough years in isolated environments, and strange habits become institutional traditions. Richard didn't seem interested in discussing the details anyway. Whenever I asked about specific rules, he redirected the conversation toward maintenance schedules or safety inspections. Only once did he hesitate. We were standing in the central control room, reviewing camera locations, when I pointed to a section of the security map highlighted in gray. The label simply read Platform 9, decommissioned. Unlike every other area of the depot, no camera feeds appeared connected to it. No maintenance routes led toward it. According to the map, the platform didn't function anymore. Richard stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. "That platform isn't part of your assignment," he said quietly. "Hasn't been for a long time." Something about the wording bothered me immediately. It isn't operational. It isn't accessible. Isn't part of your assignment. The distinction felt deliberate. Before I could ask another question, he closed the map window and moved on to another topic. My first night alone at Blackstone passed quietly enough. Rain echoed faintly through ventilation shafts while distant maintenance trains moved somewhere beyond the active sections of the network. Most of my shift involved reviewing inspection logs and monitoring equipment status screens. Around 12:40 a.m., I started reading archived maintenance reports left behind by previous overnight operators. Most documented ordinary issues. Signal failures. Electrical repairs. Drainage problems. Then I found a report dated 11 months earlier. The entry described an unauthorized train appearing briefly on depot security cameras despite no active rail connection existing in the area. Attached notes indicated the footage originated near Platform 9. Beneath the official report, someone had added a handwritten sentence in shaky blue ink. "The train only appears after you learn where the platform used to be." I remember reading the line twice. Then, glancing toward the security monitor wall. For just a second, I thought one of the inactive camera feeds flickered. For the first few nights, the unusual instructions felt exactly like the kind of folklore that develops in old transit systems. Rail workers are natural storytellers. Spend enough years underground maintaining infrastructure, and most people never see it, and eventually every tunnel acquires a history. Every abandoned platform gains a rumor, and every unexplained noise becomes part of some unofficial legend. Blackstone Depot was more than a century old in certain sections. Entire levels had been built, expanded, sealed, and forgotten before many current employees were born. The rules surrounding Platform 9 seemed to fit perfectly into that pattern. My shifts settled into a predictable routine. Monitor electrical systems. Review inspection logs. Respond to maintenance alerts. Drink terrible coffee. Outside, the city continued moving through rain and traffic. Deep underground, only the occasional vibration of distant trains disturbed the silence. After a while, the depot began feeling less like a workplace and more like a machine sleeping beneath the city. The security network quickly became the most interesting part of the job. More than 200 cameras monitored tunnels, storage tracks, maintenance corridors, ventilation systems, and active platforms. Most displayed exactly what you'd expect. Empty tracks. Locked service doors. Maintenance equipment is parked beneath fluorescent lights. Yet now and then, I notice something strange about the sections surrounding Platform 9. Officially, the platform no longer existed. According to every blueprint available through the depot database, newer construction projects had absorbed the area decades earlier. Yet archived maintenance maps occasionally displayed it anyway. Different versions of the same schematics disagreed with one another. Some showed Platform 9 clearly labeled between two service tunnels. Others omitted it completely. At first, I assumed the discrepancies resulted from poor record-keeping. Then I noticed the dates. Older documents weren't more likely to include the platform. The appearance seemed random, almost as though the station itself couldn't decide whether the platform existed. The first genuinely unusual incident occurred during my fourth overnight shift. Around 1:08 a.m., several motion sensors activated simultaneously inside a section of tunnel connected to decommissioned track lines. That wasn't impossible. Rats triggered sensors all the time. Maintenance equipment occasionally shifted due to vibrations from active rail traffic. Curious, I opened the diagnostic feed and reviewed the alerts. Every sensor had recorded movement moving toward the same destination. Platform 9. The pattern looked almost organized. One activation after another. Section C. Section D. Section F. Like something traveling through the network. Yet when I checked the corresponding security cameras, every corridor remained empty. No maintenance crews. No wildlife. No visible cause whatsoever. The sensors continued triggering for nearly 7 minutes before stopping abruptly. When I included the anomaly in my nightly report, the Transit Authority responded with a short message. Do not correlate sensor activity with Platform 9. Nothing else. No explanation. No follow-up. The instruction bothered me far more than the incident itself. 2 nights later, the public announcement system activated unexpectedly. Normally, the depot speakers remained silent after passenger service ended. Around 12:57 a.m., however, a station announcement echoed faintly through the underground corridors. The message sounded distorted, old, like an audio recording copied too many times. At first, I couldn't understand the words. Then the transmission repeated. Train arriving on Platform 9. The announcement continued for several seconds before cutting off abruptly. Every system diagnostic indicates that no broadcast occurred. No audio file played. No speaker activation registered. Yet I had heard it clearly. More disturbing, several archived maintenance reports described the same announcement dating back nearly 20 years. Every report ended the same way. Operators heard the message. System logs showed nothing. Nobody investigated further. The incident that finally unsettled me happened shortly before dawn during a severe rainstorm. Water hammered against drainage systems throughout the depot while distant thunder echoed faintly through ventilation shafts. Around 1:16 a.m., I noticed something unusual on the station status board. Track occupancy sensors indicated a train was currently parked inside an inactive section of the rail network. The location field displayed only one destination. Platform 9. My stomach tightened immediately. The entry remained visible for less than 10 seconds before disappearing. No alarm sounded. No maintenance alert triggered. Nothing. When I reviewed the logs afterward, no record existed. No train. No sensor activity. No platform designation. Yet as I sat alone in the control room waiting for sunrise, I noticed something written inside the margin of an old maintenance binder lying beside the console. A sentence, written in handwriting that looked strangely familiar. Don't watch the arrival twice. The rule I broke wasn't dramatic. I didn't enter a restricted tunnel. I didn't follow strange noises through abandoned sections of track. I didn't go searching for Platform 9 with a flashlight and a maintenance map. Instead, I broke a rule that felt unnecessarily specific. If security cameras display activity on Platform 9, do not access the feed more than once. At the time, the instruction seemed ridiculous. Security footage exists to be reviewed. That's the entire purpose of a surveillance system. So when a maintenance alert appeared during my 7th night, indicating an inactive camera had briefly reconnected inside a decommissioned section of the depot, curiosity immediately overpowered caution. The notification lasted less than 3 seconds before disappearing. Most operators probably would have ignored it. I didn't. After several minutes of searching archived diagnostics, I located the corresponding video file. The camera designation listed no location. The footage itself made the answer obvious. A deserted underground platform stretched across the screen beneath rows of aging fluorescent lights. Dust covered the tiles. Old transit maps hung from concrete walls. A faded sign near the center of the image displayed a large number. For several seconds, nothing happened. The platform appeared empty. No movement. No train. No anomalies. Just an abandoned station preserved somewhere beneath the city. Looking back, that should have reassured me. Instead, it encouraged me. The footage felt ordinary enough that I immediately replayed it. The second viewing revealed something I hadn't noticed before. A train sat at the far end of the platform, not moving, just waiting in darkness beyond the reach of most overhead lights. The realization unsettled me because the train hadn't been visible during the first playback. I rewound the footage and checked again. There it was. Motionless. Silent. Impossible to miss. Yet somehow I had. I told myself it was a simple oversight. Human perception misses obvious details constantly. Satisfied with the explanation, I replayed the recording a third time. That was the actual mistake. The train wasn't waiting at the far end of the platform anymore. It had moved. Not dramatically. Just closer. A few car lengths closer. The shift was subtle enough that I almost doubted myself. Maybe the angle looked different. Maybe I misremembered the original position. Yet the platform markers along the wall made comparison easy. The train had absolutely moved between viewings despite the footage being archived video. I spent nearly 20 minutes analyzing the file afterward. Every timestamp remained unchanged. Every system diagnostic indicated the recording was static. No evidence suggested manipulation. Eventually, I convinced myself the discrepancy resulted from stress and fatigue. Night shifts distort perception. Isolation exaggerates small irregularities. By the time dawn arrived, I felt almost embarrassed for taking the issue seriously. Nothing terrible happened immediately afterward. In fact, the next 24 hours felt unusually normal. No strange announcements echoed through the depot. No motion sensors were activated unexpectedly. No unexplained train activity appeared on monitoring systems. The absence of consequences restored my confidence completely. Whatever mystery surrounded Platform 9 clearly wasn't interested in archived footage. The warnings seemed exaggerated. Perhaps previous operators developed superstitions after spending too much time alone underground. Perhaps the platform existed physically, and management simply preferred employees avoid it. Every explanation sounded more reasonable than the alternatives. Looking back, that false sense of security probably caused more damage than the recording itself. The first warning sign appeared during my next shift. I arrived shortly before midnight and discovered a maintenance report waiting on the control room desk. The document carried my employee identification number, my digital signature. According to the timestamp, I submitted it less than 3 hours earlier. The problem was simple. I hadn't been in the depot. I spent the entire evening asleep in my apartment. Yet the report described a routine inspection of Platform 9 access corridors in remarkable detail. Track conditions, lighting status, structural observations. Every section appeared professionally written. Most disturbing of all was the final note. Arrival confirmed at 1:17 a.m. I stared at the sentence for nearly a minute, then checked the security logs. According to the system records, I entered the restricted maintenance corridor near Platform 9 at exactly 1:12 a.m. The camera footage supported it. A man wearing my uniform walked through the access gate. The image quality wasn't clear enough to identify facial features. But the build, the posture, the way he carried the flashlight, everything looked exactly like me. Around 1:17 a.m., the public announcement system activated. The sound echoed softly through empty tunnels. Train now arriving on Platform 9. My stomach tightened immediately. The message repeated once, then again. Then silence returned. A notification appeared on the station status board. Track occupancy detected. Platform 9. For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen. Then another line appeared beneath it. Passenger count, 143. The platform officially didn't exist. Yet according to the depot systems, a train had just arrived there carrying passengers. And someone using my employee credentials was already waiting for it. After the passenger count appeared, I spent nearly an hour convincing myself the system was malfunctioning. Rail infrastructure is complicated. Sensors fail. Databases corrupt themselves. Old software occasionally generates impossible outputs when multiple subsystems disagree with one another. Every explanation sounded reasonable until I started checking the individual records. According to track occupancy systems, a train remained parked at Platform 9. According to energy consumption logs, station lighting in that section had been active continuously since 1:17 a.m. According to environmental sensors, air pressure fluctuations consistent with passenger movement were occurring inside the platform area. Yet according to every official blueprint, Platform 9 didn't physically exist. The contradiction should have forced one set of records to be wrong. Instead, each system independently confirmed the others. Around 2 a.m., I finally closed the diagnostics window and decided to focus on routine maintenance work. That's when I noticed something unsettling. Every clock inside the depot displayed slightly different times. Not seconds apart. Minutes. Some lagged. Others ran ahead. The discrepancies increased the closer systems were mapped to the decommissioned sections of the station. The public announcement system changed after that. Before, the broadcasts sounded automated, generic, like pre-recorded station messages accidentally triggering after hours. Now they have become specific, personal. Around 12:53 a.m., a soft chime echoed through the underground corridors. Then a calm female voice emerged from speakers throughout the depot. Passengers for the Mercer line should proceed to Platform 9. I froze. Mercer. My surname. The announcement repeated twice before disappearing. Every system log showed that no broadcast occurred. No speaker activation. No audio file. Nothing. Yet I wasn't the only one who heard it. A maintenance worker operating 3 levels above ground submitted a report 15 minutes later describing an unidentified announcement referencing a route that didn't exist. When I reviewed his statement, one sentence stood out immediately. The voice sounded like it expected someone to arrive. The security cameras started behaving strangely during the following nights. Not failing. Adapting. Inactive cameras began generating footage. Angles appeared from locations where no surveillance equipment existed. Service tunnels displayed corridors extending beyond documented station layouts. Abandoned maintenance rooms appeared occupied by old equipment removed years earlier. Most disturbing of all, Platform 9 began showing up more frequently. Never directly. Always indirectly. Reflections inside train windows. Background details hidden within unrelated feeds. Brief glimpses through maintenance tunnel cameras. Every appearance lasted only a few seconds. Yet each sighting revealed additional details. More lighting. More passengers. More activity. The platform seemed increasingly occupied. One archived image showed commuters reading newspapers beneath fluorescent lights. Another displayed workers standing near a timetable board. The scene looked completely ordinary except for one detail. Every photograph contained the same people regardless of the date attached to the file. Then I found the logs. Not maintenance records. Passenger records. The discovery happened accidentally while reviewing archived transit databases. Blackstone systems retained decades of historical scheduling information, much of it forgotten and inaccessible through ordinary interfaces. Buried inside one of those archives sat an active passenger manifest linked to Platform 9. At first glance, the document resembled a normal commuter record. Names. Ticket numbers. Travel dates. Then I noticed the timestamps. Some entries dated back 50 years. Others hadn't occurred yet. Several passengers appeared multiple times across different decades. Most disturbing was a familiar name near the bottom of the list. Daniel Mercer. Status. Expected arrival. Platform 9. Departure. Pending. The entry contained no travel date. No ticket information. No destination. Only a note. Passenger has begun observing service. The final escalation arrived during a storm shortly after 1:17 a.m. Every security monitor inside the control room flickered simultaneously. Then every camera displayed the same image. Platform 9. Not fragments. Not reflections. The entire platform. Brightly illuminated beneath rows of aging station lights. Passengers crowded the waiting area. Men and women dressed in clothing spanning decades. Some carried briefcases. Others luggage. A few simply stood staring toward the tracks. Then a train arrived. Silent. Massive. Its headlights are emerging from the darkness beyond the platform. The doors opened slowly. Nobody boarded. Nobody exited. Instead, every passenger turned toward the nearest security camera. Toward me. Toward the control room. And for the first time, I noticed someone standing among them. A transit worker wearing a maintenance uniform. Holding a flashlight. Wearing my employee identification badge. The figure looked directly into the camera. Then slowly raised one hand. inviting me to come down to the platform. Seeing myself standing on Platform 9 changed the nature of the problem completely. Up until that moment, I had treated the depot anomalies as infrastructure failures wrapped in superstition. Strange announcements, corrupted records, impossible camera feeds. Every event could be explained away individually if I tried hard enough. The figure wearing my uniform destroyed that illusion. It wasn't simply a resemblance. The identification badge hanging from the jacket carried my employee number. The flashlight clipped to the belt matched the one sitting beside me in the control room. Most disturbing of all, the figure moved exactly the way I did. Same posture. Same slight limp in my right leg from a college football injury. The image remained visible for less than 30 seconds before every monitor returned to normal operation. Yet the sight lingered in my mind long afterward. Around dawn, I stopped monitoring train systems entirely and started searching for historical records related to Platform 9. If the platform existed somewhere beneath the station, then someone had built it. Someone had used it. Somewhere, there had to be documentation explaining why an entire section of rail infrastructure had been erased from official maps. The oldest records weren't stored digitally. They occupied a forgotten archive room buried beneath maintenance offices near the original depot foundations. Dust-covered transit reports filled filing cabinets stretching back nearly 80 years. Most documented routine operational changes, track expansions, platform closures, service adjustments. Then I found references to Platform 9. The platform wasn't originally decommissioned because of budget cuts or redevelopment projects. It was removed following an incident. The official reports avoided specifics. Language became increasingly vague the closer I got to the actual event. Passenger irregularities, schedule discrepancies, unauthorized service activity. Eventually, I discovered a handwritten memorandum attached to a transit board investigation from 1974. According to the document, trains had begun arriving at Platform 9 without appearing on dispatch schedules. At first, employees assumed clerical errors were responsible. Then the passenger manifests started changing. Travelers arrived who hadn't purchased tickets. Conductors appeared who weren't employed by the transit authority. Some passengers reportedly existed inside station records years before they were born. Others continued appearing long after their documented deaths. The deeper I dug, the stranger the history became. Platform 9 wasn't hidden because something happened there. It was hidden because something continued happening there. Every decade produced identical reports. Unauthorized arrivals. Passenger records are altering themselves. Employees appearing inside schedules before being hired. Most disturbing was a collection of incident interviews conducted with depot supervisors across several generations. Different people. Different eras. Same observations. They all described Platform 9 as functioning independently of the transit system surrounding it. The trains didn't follow schedules. They followed people. Specifically, individuals who became aware of the platform's existence. One supervisor from 1986 summarized the phenomenon in a statement that haunted me afterward. The platform doesn't transport passengers. It archives them. Then I found the recordings. Old security footage was transferred from obsolete surveillance systems and preserved inside the Transit Authority archives. The earliest clips appeared ordinary enough. Crowded platforms. Commuters boarding trains. Maintenance crews are performing inspections. Then patterns emerged. The same passengers appeared repeatedly across decades of recordings. Not similar people. Identical people. A businessman standing beside a timetable in 1963 reappeared in footage from 1989 without aging. A woman carrying a red suitcase surfaced in recordings spanning nearly 40 years. Eventually, I recognized another face. Richard Voss, the supervisor who trained me. He appeared in surveillance footage dated 22 years before he supposedly began working at Blackstone. In every recording, he stood on Platform 9 waiting beside the tracks, watching trains arrive, watching passengers board, watching something the cameras never fully captured. The realization unsettled me because Richard never mentioned any of this. Not once. Which meant he already knew. The final discovery waited inside a sealed archive box labeled Passenger Transfer Records. The files contained information on transit employees connected to Platform 9, supervisors, conductors, maintenance workers, security personnel, every individual who investigated the platform extensively. At first, the records looked routine. Employment histories, personnel evaluations, incident reports. Then I noticed the final status field attached to each file. Transferred to service. Not resigned. Not terminated. Not deceased. Transferred. The wording appeared on every record. Every single one. Near the bottom of the stack, I found my file. Created 6 days before my hiring date. The folder already contained years of documentation. Maintenance reports. Passenger observations. Platform inspections. Even photographs. One image showed me standing beside a train on Platform 9. Smiling. Wearing a transit uniform I had never seen before. Attached to the photograph was a departure schedule. Not for a train. For me. Daniel Mercer. Service assignment pending. First arrival, 1:17 a.m. Platform 9 awaits confirmation. After finding my own transfer file inside the archive, I stopped thinking about Platform 9 as a place and started understanding it as a process. That distinction changed everything. Every report I uncovered described the same progression. Awareness, observation, documentation, transfer. Employees discovered the platform. They investigated it. They appeared in its records. Eventually, they became part of its operations. The terminology remained remarkably consistent across decades of transit authority documents. Nobody vanished. Nobody died. They were transferred to service. The phrase appeared so often that it stopped feeling bureaucratic and started feeling ritualistic. Looking back, I realized the signs had been present from my first night underground. The maintenance reports were written before I arrived. The passenger manifest lists my name. The security footage shows me standing on the platform. None of those records were predicting the future. They were documenting a version of me that already existed somewhere within the system. I created my own rules the next morning. Never watch Platform 9 footage more than once. Never review passenger manifests after midnight. Never enter maintenance corridors connected to decommissioned tracks. Never acknowledge anyone wearing my uniform on security cameras. Most importantly, never approach a train that arrives at 1:17 a.m. The final rule emerged naturally from the archive evidence. Every transferred employee eventually boarded a train. Some reports implied the process happened voluntarily. Others suggested the individuals simply stopped resisting. Regardless of the circumstances, the outcome remained identical. Their personnel files changed. Their schedules expanded. Their names appeared on passenger manifests. Then they entered service. Nobody explained what service actually meant. The records never needed to. The photographs provided enough information. Every transferred employee eventually appeared on Platform 9 waiting beside arriving trains. Not trapped. Not distressed. Working. For several nights, the rules seemed effective. The announcements stopped. Passenger manifests remained unchanged. Security systems behaved normally. The temporary calm almost convinced me I had interrupted whatever process the platform relied upon. Yet the silence felt different from genuine absence. Less like the phenomenon had retreated and more like it had become patient. The depot itself began changing instead. Platform references appeared throughout ordinary documentation. Maintenance requests included corridor numbers connected to decommissioned areas. Work orders directed technicians toward locations that didn't officially exist. Most employees ignored the inconsistencies. I couldn't. Once I noticed them, they appeared everywhere. It felt as though the station was slowly rewriting itself around the platform. Or perhaps revealing parts that had always been there. The passenger manifests changed next. Not dramatically. Personally. One evening around 12:48 a.m., I opened a routine transit database and discovered a new category beneath employee records. Service status. Every active worker carried a designation. Unaware. Observing. Assigned. Transferred. Most employees remained listed as unaware. Several supervisors appeared under observing. Richard Voss carried the status assigned. My own record displayed something worse. Arriving. I stared at the screen for nearly a minute before another field appeared beneath it. Expected platform, 9. Expected time, 1:17 a.m. Passenger number, 144. The realization hit immediately. The previous manifest listed 143 passengers. I wasn't being added to the platform. I was completing it. The final rule emerged during an announcement that never officially occurred. At exactly 1:16 a.m., every speaker inside Blackstone Depot activated simultaneously. Not just public address systems. Maintenance intercoms. Emergency communication networks. Even inactive speakers connected to abandoned sections of the station. The familiar arrival chime echoed through underground tunnels before a calm voice began speaking. Not automated. Not recorded. Human. Final boarding call for passenger 144. Every hair on my arms stood upright. The announcement repeated slowly. Passenger 144, your train is now arriving. Then the station maps changed. Every monitor inside the control room refreshed simultaneously. Platform 9 appeared on every layout. Not hidden. Not decommissioned. Active. Brightly illuminated. Connected to tracks extending far beyond the documented rail network. A train icon moved steadily toward the platform. Arrival time, 1:17 a.m. Then a final notification appeared across every screen. No transit authority logo. No system identification. Just a single line of text. Passenger has begun recognizing the route. After the station maps changed, I stopped pretending Platform 9 was merely an abandoned section of railway infrastructure. Abandoned things don't rewrite databases. Abandoned things don't alter personnel records. Abandoned things don't slowly convince entire transit systems that they were never abandoned in the first place. The realization settled over me while I sat alone inside the control room watching the train icon move steadily across a section of track that officially did not exist. Every archive report, every passenger manifest, every impossible maintenance record suddenly aligned beneath a single horrifying truth. The platform wasn't hidden from employees. The platform was hidden from reality itself. Blackstone Depot had spent decades containing something that functioned alongside the transit network without actually belonging to it. A parallel service. A route operating beneath ordinary schedules. The longer someone observed it, the more visible it became. Not because it was appearing. Because they were. Awareness wasn't discovery. Awareness was arrival. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the train entered the station. Not physically. Every monitor inside the control room activated simultaneously. Security cameras, track sensors, maintenance displays, passenger databases. Every system began describing the arrival at once. Track occupancy confirmed. Doors opening. Passengers disembarking. Environmental pressure changes. Platform activity is increasing. The depot itself behaved as though the train had arrived, even though no active camera displayed it directly. Then the public announcement system was activated. Platform 9 service has arrived. The voice sounded calm, professional, routine. As though this happened every night. Then another message followed. Passenger 144 may now board. My employee badge immediately stopped working. Door access revoked. Security credentials disabled. Personnel records updated. Across the central monitoring screen, my employment status changed in real time. Active employee. Then observing, then assigned, then one final designation, arriving. The station no longer considered me staff. It considered me a passenger. The depot reacted immediately afterward. Hallways shifted. Maintenance routes changed. Entire sections of the underground complex appeared where solid walls had existed previously. Service corridors extended beyond documented boundaries. Old station signage emerged beneath newer construction. Everywhere I looked, Platform 9 became easier to reach. Directional arrows appeared on walls. Transit maps expanded. Emergency exits rerouted themselves. The station wasn't luring me toward the platform. It was reorganizing itself around it. Then I found Richard. Or rather, I found a version of Richard. The security cameras displayed him standing on Platform 9 beside one of the waiting trains. Same tired expression. Same maintenance jacket. Same posture I remembered from my first night. Yet something felt wrong about the image. Not unnatural. Permanent. Richard wasn't trapped there. He looked exactly like an employee beginning another routine shift. Around him stood dozens of transit workers from archived personnel files. Supervisors. Conductors. Signal operators. Employees spanning nearly 70 years of station history. Some should have been retired. Others should have been dead. Yet they waited calmly beside the train as though preparing for work. Then Richard looked directly into the camera, into me, and shook his head. Not a warning, not a threat. Regret. The gesture unsettled me more than anything else, because it suggested he remembered what happened before the transfer. The final escalation began at 1:26 a.m. Every passenger manifest inside the transit database opens automatically. Thousands of names filled the screens. Commuters, workers, travelers, decades of transit records. Then one by one, the names began disappearing. Not deleted, moved, transferred. Each record shifted into a new category. Service passengers. The list expanded rapidly. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. The platform wasn't collecting employees. It wasn't collecting riders. It was collecting everyone who had ever become aware of it. Every observer, every investigator, every passenger who accidentally noticed something they shouldn't have. The horrifying scale of the archive finally became clear. Platform 9 wasn't a train station. It was a destination. Then the train doors opened. Not on a monitor. Behind me. A soft chime echoed through the control room. I turned slowly. The wall behind the operations consoles was gone. In its place stood a brightly illuminated underground platform. Platform 9. Passengers waited silently beneath aging station lights. The train stood motionless beside them. Its doors open. Its interior glows warmly. And standing nearest the entrance was another version of me, wearing a transit uniform, holding a maintenance flashlight, smiling patiently, like someone waiting to hand over the remainder of a shift that had already lasted far too long. Then the arrival board above the platform illuminated. One destination appeared across the display. Service continues. For several seconds, I stood frozen between the control room and Platform 9. The impossible platform occupied space that should not have existed. One side of the room remained Blackstone's operations center. Banks of monitors, maintenance consoles, emergency communication systems. The other side opened directly onto the platform. Bright station lights reflected across polished tiles while passengers waited in perfect silence. The transition between the two environments felt seamless, as though the depot had finally stopped hiding part of itself. The version of me standing beside the train didn't move. He simply waited with the patient expression of someone expecting an overdue arrival. Behind him, the train hummed softly. Not with mechanical energy, with anticipation. Every archive report, every transfer record, every passenger manifest suddenly made terrible sense. Nobody was forced onto the train. The platform presented itself only after the process was nearly complete. By then, most people boarded willingly because they believed they had reached the end of the mystery. I realized that was the final trap. The station didn't reward curiosity. It converted it into participation. Then something unexpected happened. I remembered my father. Not the version preserved inside photographs or paperwork after his death. The real memory. Sitting beside him during a rainstorm when I was 12 years old, while we waited for a delayed commuter train. He told me something I hadn't thought about in years. Systems aren't alive, he said while watching passengers move through the station. People forget that. Systems only continue because somebody keeps agreeing to follow them. The memory arrived with startling clarity. Standing there between the control room and Platform 9, I finally understood what every previous observer had missed. The platform only existed because everyone accepted its rules. Every employee investigated it. Every passenger followed it. Every transfer completed the cycle. Nobody ever refused the role entirely. They either fled or boarded. No one had tried something simpler. No one had stopped treating the platform like a destination. So I walked away from it. Not ran. Not resisted dramatically. I simply turned my back on the train. The reaction was immediate. The station lights flickered violently. Passenger manifests opened across every monitor. Arrival announcements echoed through the depot. The train doors remained open. The platform remained visible. Yet something underneath the illusion shifted. For the first time, the passengers moved. Not toward me. Toward the train. Thousands of archived commuters began boarding simultaneously. Men and women from different decades stepped through the doors without expression. Transit workers followed. Conductors. Supervisors. Maintenance staff. Every transferred employee from the archives. The platform wasn't trying to take me. It was trying to keep itself operational. And without passenger 144, the system had encountered something it clearly wasn't designed to handle. The version of me beside the train finally moved. His smile vanished. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Then he stepped away from the entrance and began walking toward me. Not threateningly. Desperately. As though he understood something I didn't. The closer he came, the more wrong the image became. Tiny inconsistencies emerged. Memories where eyes should have been. Habits instead of expressions. A person assembled entirely from records rather than life. Suddenly, I understood what Platform 9 truly achieved. Not bodies. Not souls. Patterns. Observations. The train preserves versions of people the same way a database preserves information. Useful. Detailed. Convincing. But incomplete. The realization broke something fundamental inside the illusion. Around the platform, lights began failing. Timetables flickered. Passenger lists erased themselves. The station wasn't losing power. It was losing certainty. The final act felt almost absurdly simple. I sat down at the central control console and initiated a complete depot shutdown. Not an emergency shutdown. A routine one. The same procedure is used during annual maintenance closures. Track systems offline. Announcement systems offline. Passenger information networks offline. One by one, Blackstone's infrastructure disconnected itself from the thing hidden beneath it. The platform reacted instantly. Lights dimmed. Trains faded. Passengers slowed. Every system Platform 9 borrowed from the depot began disappearing. The version of me stopped walking. The train doors closed. Somewhere deep underground, I heard the sound of rails shifting for the first time. Not arriving. Departing. Then the platform began moving away. Not physically. Conceptually. Like a station slipping out of alignment with reality. The passengers vanished first. Then the train. Then the lights. The final thing to disappear was the other Daniel. He stood beside the departing platform and watched me for several seconds. Not angry. Not frightened. Disappointed. Like someone witnessing a route being cancelled after waiting years for departure. Then the darkness swallowed him. And Platform 9 finally left the station. The Transit Authority's investigation lasted nearly 3 months. Officially, the incident was classified as a systems failure triggered by a cascading software malfunction during overnight maintenance operations. Engineers reviewed logs. Auditors examined infrastructure records. Supervisors interviewed employees. Nobody found anything unusual because there was nothing left to find. Platform 9 no longer appeared on station schematics. Passenger manifests returned to normal. The archive files vanished. Even the security footage showing the platform's existence disappeared from every backup system. According to the evidence, nothing had happened beneath Blackstone Depot. Yet something had changed. Several long-term employees resigned unexpectedly within weeks of the incident. Richard Voss retired without explanation. Entire sections of historical documentation were quietly removed from transit databases. Nobody discussed the omissions. Nobody asked questions. It felt less like a cover-up and more like collective relief, as though the system itself was grateful to forget. I left Blackstone shortly afterward. The decision wasn't difficult. For months, I had spent every night watching a hidden route slowly insert itself into reality. Returning to ordinary maintenance work felt impossible after that. I accepted a position with a transportation contractor several states away and moved without hesitation. New city, new apartment, new routines. For a while, the distance helped. The nightmares faded. The announcements stopped. I no longer woke expecting to hear trains arriving beneath my bedroom floor. Most importantly, I stopped looking for Platform 9 in every station map and transit schedule I encountered. Gradually, normal life returned. Not completely. Never completely. But enough that entire weeks passed without thinking about Blackstone at all. Then the transit maps started appearing. No return address. No packaging. Just folded subway maps arriving in my mailbox every few months. At first, I assumed they were promotional materials from transit agencies. Most looked ordinary enough. Different cities. Different countries. Different rail systems. Then I noticed the pattern. Every map contained an extra platform hidden somewhere within the network. Sometimes the addition appeared as a faint printing error. Other times, it looked completely intentional. Platform 9. Platform 22. Platform 41. The designation changed. The symbol remained the same. A small station icon connected to tracks that shouldn't exist. Whenever I checked official versions of the maps online afterward, the extra platform was gone. Yet each new mailing arrived carrying another variation of the same impossible route. The implication unsettled me because it suggested Blackstone wasn't unique. The platform had never belonged to a single station. The realization arrived nearly 2 years later. I was traveling for work and waiting inside a crowded underground terminal during a rainstorm. Commuters moved through the station carrying umbrellas and briefcases while arrival boards flickered overhead. It should have felt ordinary. Then I noticed a maintenance worker standing near the edge of the platform. Nothing unusual about that by itself. Transit employees were everywhere. Yet something about him seemed familiar. The posture. The uniform. The flashlight was clipped to his belt. Slowly, he turned toward me. My stomach tightened immediately. It wasn't Richard. It wasn't the other version of me. It was someone entirely different. Yet I recognized the expression instantly. The same exhausted patience. The same look of someone waiting for an arrival nobody else could see. For several seconds, we simply stared at one another. Then he glanced toward a dark section of tunnel beyond the active tracks. And nodded. Not a greeting. Not a warning. Recognition. When I looked back a moment later, he was gone. I barely sleep now. Most nights, I wake around 1:17 a.m. without knowing why. Sometimes I hear station announcements drifting through dreams I can't fully remember. Other times, I catch myself studying transit maps longer than necessary. Looking for something. Expecting something. The worst moments happen while traveling. Airports. Bus terminals. Train stations. Any place built around departures. Every once in a while, usually late at night, I'll notice an unfamiliar platform listed briefly on an arrival board before it disappears. The destinations are always different. The schedules never remain visible long enough to photograph. Yet one detail never changes. The service status. Always the same words. Service continues. And during those moments, I always remember the final note hidden inside the oldest Platform 9 archive recovered from Blackstone Depot. The sentence that the state authorities spent decades trying unsuccessfully to erase. The platform does not transport passengers. It transports observers who stayed long enough to learn where the route goes.